About a year ago, Sirui released the 85mm f1.4 Aurora lens, which is one of the most affordable autofocus full-frame f1.4 lenses out there, and it was tack sharp. Now, almost a year later, Sirui is back with another release, the brand new 35mm f1.4. And again, it's compact, fast, full frame, super affordable, and supposedly has G-Master performance. But there is a small catch, so let's talk about it. Let's start with the build quality. It's a very similar design to the 85mm Aurora. It's a mostly metal lens, which is nice to see at this price point. But this 35mm even feels a little bit more solid. Everything clicks together very nicely, there's no wiggle in the rings, and nothing feels cheap. So Sirui clearly took some time to refine the design. If we take a closer look, you've got pretty much every feature you'd want on a modern lens. An autofocus manual focus switch, a custom button, a clickable or declickable aperture ring that feels really nice, a super useful iris lock switch so you don't accidentally bump the aperture mid-shoot, and at the mount there is a USB-C port for firmware updates. And Sirui even claims that this 35mm is fully weather sealed. So not just the visible rubber gasket at the mount, but seals around every ring and button, so it's dust resistant, dirt resistant, and can handle a few raindrops. This lens weighs 490 grams, which is a little bit lighter than the G-Master at 521 grams, and noticeably lighter than the Sigma 35 f1.4 at 665 grams. The focus ring turns nice and smooth. The aperture ring is also very smooth, and you can set that from f1.4 to f16. Or when set to A mode, you can use electronic aperture control. The 35mm has a filter thread of 62mm, which is surprisingly not the same as the 85mm Aurora. That one has a 67mm filter thread. It's not a deal breaker, but I would have honestly loved a bit more consistency here. The minimum focus distance on the Sirui 35 is 35 centimeters. The Sigma can do 30 centimeters and the Sony G-Master can do 25 centimeters. The Sirui 35mm is available for Sony E mount, Nikon Z mount, Fuji X mount, and Leica L mount. Now let's have a look at the image quality. Now usually affordable lenses like this are not the sharpest, especially wide open at f1.4. But if we have a look at this chart and zoom into the center, you can see that it is very sharp. If we look at the edges of the frame, they are a bit softer, but still really good. From f2.8 and up, this lens is super sharp throughout the whole frame. The center is perfect, and also the edges are looking great. You'll also notice a little bit of vignetting at f2.4, which isn't that uncommon, and it's also pretty easy to get rid of if you don't like it. If we have a look at the chromatic aberration on this lens, which is the bit of color fringing on high contrast edges, there is a little bit wide open at f1.4. But if we go to f2, it almost goes away completely, which is again a really good performance. This lens also doesn't show a lot of distortion. Maybe there is a small hint of pincushion distortion, but it's so minimal that I wouldn't worry about it. Now let's have a look at how the autofocus performs on this lens. The Sirui 35mm uses a stepping motor autofocus system, and this typically results in smooth and quiet focusing, which is ideal for shooting video. And after doing a few tests with this lens, I can say that the autofocus does a really good job, especially for a third-party lens. It's fast, quiet, and very accurate. You can see the autofocus consistently tracks my face and eyes really well, even at f1.4. Also, when I move in and out of the frame, the lens responds quickly and accurately, nailing focus pretty much every time. I also didn't notice any hunting or weird pulsing issues. Also in this test, you can see that there is no focus hunting or hesitation, and the lens performed really well. It's very fast and accurate in nailing focus. When it comes to focus breathing, this lens does have a good amount of focus breathing, as you can see here. So if you shoot video and this is something you are concerned about, then this could be an issue. Looking at the flaring on this 35mm, there is a little bit of ghosting going on, and there are some artifacts, but I personally don't mind them. I find that it gives the lens a little bit of character. However, if this is an issue for you and you want a cleaner look, you can use the included lens hood and block some of the light that's coming into the lens. The bokeh and autofocus backgrounds on the Sirui 35mm look really beautiful thanks to the 13 rounded aperture blades. The lens produces nice and round bokeh balls, but when zooming in you will notice a tiny bit of onion ring texture. It also shows some cat eye shapes towards the edges, which is actually quite common. Alright, now let's talk about the price, because this is where it becomes really difficult not to choose this lens. The price of the Sirui 35mm f1.4 is $549 US. The Sigma 35 f1.4 costs almost double that. And the Sony 35mm G Master costs even 3 times more. And to be perfectly honest, in most real-world use cases, the image quality, the build quality, and the autofocus are on par. Sure, the G Master is going to be a touch sharper and a hair faster with autofocus, but 3 times the amount? I don't know. So if you're wanting to buy a fast 35mm prime lens and you're working on a budget, or even if you just don't want to spend the money on the Sigma or the Sony, I would say that this lens is a no-brainer. It looks great, works excellent, and feels premium. Alright my friends, that's it for today's video. I'll drop a link in the description if you want to check out that Sirui 35mm f1.4. And let me know in the comments what you think. Could this be the best budget 35mm right now? As always, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!